Hey, this is Blough. It's time for another 5x5, and today we're going to talk about cloud security. Now, first of all, what is the cloud? Now, you've heard it all over the place. It's been on the news. It's been in the publications. You and your friends talk about it over coffee, I'm quite sure. But what exactly is the cloud? Well, the cloud's not really new. It's just a new name to an old type of thing. We used to call it an application service provider, or ASP model, back in the 2000 time frame, 1999s, somewhere in that period of time. And that model kind of went kaboom and blew up, and so that name got to be an ugly name. So now when they're relaunching it, they call it the cloud. And really all the cloud is something that allows us to access a service or a software program kind of as a service that is not physically at our location, that is in some data center, someplace, somewhere in the world. At least right now in the world. Perhaps tomorrow it'll be up in the moon and in Mars and other places, but right now it's just localized to us. And so it's a service provided through the internet to us. Now, it's pretty exciting because in many cases what that allows us to do is, instead of having a server on site or having a bunch of hardware and software and then having somebody to come in and maintain that and take care of all of that, we just take those services and we share them with other people from a localized data center. And so it's real appealing, especially to people that have niche applications, accounting software, various other programs that might be out there. One of the most simple ones to explain this is website hosting. Almost no one I know hosts a website locally any longer. Everybody pretty much uses a cloud service to provide that web hosting using somebody else's data center someplace else. So one of the big misconceptions, though, that I hear all of the time is that I'll go in and I'll begin to talk with somebody about their information structure and where all their data is at. And they'll say, oh, I don't have to worry about any of that because my data is in the cloud. And what they don't realize is that they're still absolutely responsible for the security of their data. In fact, because it's in the cloud, it may even be less secure. And they're also making assumptions about the people that are providing for the care of those servers, that they're doing things that really they're not doing. Let me explain it to you this way. Just because you take your server, your program, and you move it someplace else doesn't mean that the elves and the gremlins are going to come out and take care of it. You really have to have that as a targeted service. Now, there are some companies that when they host your server applications, that they'll include as part of their service managing that software and managing those what we call virtual servers. But if you didn't sign up for that, and if you're not paying for that, you're not getting that. We had one customer come to us, and their new, very expensive web service that they were going to be providing to their customers through a hosted server, it got infected with a virus, and they just couldn't understand how that happened. And so they came to us, and for us to remediate the virus, we logged into their cloud console, and we went in there and we took care of the virus. And then they were like, well, how did that happen? Because this cloud provider, they're taking care of all of that. And we had to explain to them that their cloud provider wasn't doing any of that because they weren't being paid to do any of that, and they didn't even offer that kind of a service. And so they would need to contract with somebody like us to maintain that server, even though it was over there in the cloud. So just because something is in the cloud doesn't mean that it's being backed up. It doesn't mean that it has antivirus. It doesn't mean that it has malware protection. It doesn't mean that there's a systems administrator taking care of it or doing anything along those lines unless you intentfully are paying for that service. And so I think really what I'm trying to suggest to you today is that don't just assume that when you move it someplace else that it's going to magically be taken care of. It won't be. Your responsibility goes wherever you host your data at. In fact, think about it like this. Now, instead of having your data locally where you're at, your data is someplace else. And so what would happen to your data if that company went out of business or that service was interrupted? How would you gain access to that information? Now, like in healthcare and several of the other regulated industries, they have to have an emergency mode management policy. They have to have a policy that says that in the event that we are cut off from our information, we're still going to be able to function. And you need to kind of consider that when you're dealing with something that's located in a data center, maybe in Timbuktu, someplace like that. How are you going to access that information? How are you going to take care of your clients or your patients if you can't gain direct access to that? So just some things to consider, and I think one of the best strategies is just to be aware of the fact that you have those needs and you have that opportunity in front of you. And so just encourage you, if you will, to give us a call and talk with us. We'll be glad to work through your cloud strategy with you and make sure that everything you've got elsewhere is being taken care of just as well as the things that are on site.